One, we're going to have an international partner with us on this very first crew mission. Soichi-san from Japan. He's, of course, a veteran astronaut. He's done amazing work on the International Space Station already, and now he's going to go back with us again, this time on an American rocket. The other big thing is we're actually increasing the capacity to do research on the International Space Station. So when we increase the number of astronauts on board, we're going to be able to get 3 times as much science done and 3 times as much technology development complete. And all of that is critically important for our Artemis program and eventually our Mars program. So as we develop Moon to Mars, we're going to be using low Earth orbit to test all of these capabilities and technologies, ultimately to create a sustainable return to the Moon and then take all of that knowledge onto Mars. So this particular mission is another critical milestone. We're very excited about it. And of course, we've got a great panel today to discuss these and other things. So thank you, Gary, and I'll look forward to answering questions a little later on.
Thank you, Administrator. We'll now hand it over to Kathy Leaders.
Thank you so much. I always hate to follow Jim because he does such a great job. So I wanted to kind of emphasize that, as Jim had mentioned, this is a great milestone for us. It's a culmination of many, many years of work with NASA and SpaceX. And there's a lot of folks out there that have contributed to us getting where we are today. And I really would like to thank the team that has gotten us here. A tremendous amount of work. And obviously for my past job, this means a lot, but I'm really looking forward to, in my new role, continue to see the success of this commercial crew program. As I was able to, for the first time, I think, actually provide breaking news last night that we're moving towards the launch being on October 31st, a nice Halloween launch. Moving towards this, the team's been carefully laying out planning, working through the sequence of the timing of a Soyuz arrival. It's a very busy October for us. Soyuz arrival, getting everything ready, and then obviously getting ready for Crew-1. We're very excited to be heading into our operational missions. This is a culmination of a dream of us to have commercial crew rotation seats up on station, and looking forward to many more to come.
Thank you, Kathy. Now we'll hand it over to Hans Kooningsman from SpaceX.
Yeah, good morning. I'm honored to be here with my NASA colleagues, and I would like to thank them for working with us and entrusting us flying NASA astronaut to the International Space Station on the Crew Dragon first operational mission. As has been mentioned, we are targeting right now the October 31st. It's very early in the morning. It's 2:40. It's actually still the October 30 in California. For this particular launch, we're happy to support NASA in any schedule that they need, and we will use the additional time to review things, build records, whatever we have, over and over again until we're really sure that we are safe to fly. In general, we will fly when we're ready to fly. That's been our promise all the time, and that's what we did in the last mission. For the past year and working closely with NASA, we have been super busy and had a couple of missions that got us to this point in time here. We launched 2 CRS missions, among them the last Dragon 1 resupply mission, and Dragon, just to remind everybody, has been in service by now for 10 years, which seems incredible. And it's been such a remarkable and successful program. It helped us develop, our capability on both building spacecraft, operating spacecraft, and last not least, working with NASA and working with the International Space Station. It's all been super exciting and very important. We really like to thank NASA for all their support throughout the company's history and getting us to this point. Then we also did a in-flight escape demonstration in January, and then of course, if you recall, in May this year we launched the Demo 2 mission and returned human spaceflight to the United States for the first time since 9 years. it was an amazing mission, and it was an incredible honor to fly Bob and Doug. And I do have a quick Demo 2 video recap for you.
Welcome aboard. Dragon, SpaceX, ComCheck, ground stations.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
On behalf of the entire launch team, thanks for flying with Falcon 9 today. We hope you enjoyed the ride and wish you a great mission.
We would like to welcome you aboard Capsule Endeavour.
We do have a friend on board with us, Trimmer, the Apatosaurus. I think I was requested to do a backflip.
Good night, Megan and Theo. And Karen and Jack.
MD Houston flight. Houston is go for undocking and departure.
Dragon is committed to undock.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground. We are ready for the systems brief.
Copy. As stated, Dragon's in a healthy state. We are proceeding toward the primary landing site, and your timeline is current.
Visual, 2 drogues out.
300 meters. We are braced for splashdown.
Copy, brace for splashdown. Endeavour, on behalf of the SpaceX and NASA teams, welcome back to planet Earth, and thanks for flying SpaceX.
It's a humbling experience to be a part of what was accomplished.
It's great to see how excited everybody was. We hope it brings a little bit of brightness to a pretty tough 2020.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. It's always amazing to see the videos of successful flights and missions and launches, and that gives me a little bit of goosebumps. Anyways, Demo 2 was extremely clean for an inaugural mission. Bob and Doug gave us great feedback, and basically on everything from the ground supply all the way to the spacecraft itself, and it was a long way to get to the point, but I really feel like we did it safely and reliably, and built a great spacecraft, and they tested it very well during the first mission. So there's always lessons learned, and in this particular case, we learned a couple lessons. One of them is related to the heat shield. We found on a tile a little bit more erosion than we wanted to see, and it had to do with obstructions within the heat shield itself, where the spacecraft is mounted to the trunk, basically, and in that particular area, we redesigned the heat shield tile, and at this point in time, everything has been tested and is ready to go for the next mission. The other lesson learned was related to how we measure the altitude during the parachute deploy. Last time we deployed inside the allowable box, absolutely no problem, but just a little bit lower than we expected. And so we improved the barometric altitude measurement, and we improved the cross-check with all the other navigation sensors for the next mission. And then, last not least, we closely coordinate between NASA and SpaceX with the U.S. Coast Guard to establish a 10-mile keep-out zone for any boaters to make sure that the recovery is safe and that our crew is safe, the astronauts are safe, and the public itself is safe. And so we're going to have more boats on the next go around and make sure that the area is really clear of any other boats. We already implemented that. We are at this point in time reviewing documentation, making sure everything is good to go. We do have a static fire ahead of us and several simulations also to keep the crew and ourselves, sharp and good to go. And so I'm definitely looking forward to moving into the operational phase with Dragon and having more and more operational flights over the next coming years. Talking about the next coming years, I also want to talk about quickly about the cargo Dragon 2. We had a picture a while back. I'm not sure if we can show this again. Well, it's there it is, exactly. That's the new cargo Dragon, right? This is CRS-21, or in NASA language, SpaceX 21, I guess. And it's very similar to the old Dragon in the way that we load the cargo inside, basically, and there's a trunk that has external cargoes. Very similar. The difference is that we use the arm on the tower now to just walk in and load it there. It's going to be a little bit easier for the crew to do this. But yeah, it's essentially proven technology on our side with an updated and new vehicle that's very, very similar to the crew version. Once this Dragon attaches to the station, it docks actually like the Crew Dragon does. It will be the first time that we have two Dragons on the International Space Station. That's pretty amazing. And if you think about it, going forward, we actually anticipate right now that during 2021 we will always have at least one Dragon attached to the space station, either bringing astronauts to the space station or bringing the resupply cargo, depending on which vehicle it is. Again, we're honored to work with NASA, its international partners, and and support the important research and experiments on board of the space station. It's been a great pleasure. We're humbled to be the nation's premier provider to the International Space Station. Back to you.
Thanks to all of our briefers for those initial remarks. We'll now open it up for questions. Again, if you're on our phone bridge, please press *1 to submit a question. Once your name is called, please state to whom you'd like to direct your question. We'll have a lot of questions, so if you find that yours has already been answered, press *2 to withdraw it. On social media, please use the hashtag #AskNASA. Let's start on our phone bridge with Joey Roulette from Reuters.
For doing this. Question is for Hans Kooningsman and Jim Bridenstine or Kathy Litters. I was just wondering generally what work is needed before we can officially certify Crew Dragon, and if there's any specific details about that you could provide that you learned from the DN2 mission, that would be great. Thanks.
Jim Bridenstine, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so I'll defer this to Kathy. I know it was her program until I pulled her up to headquarters to run the entire human exploration program. So Kathy, I'll defer to you.
Yeah, I think the major work is in a couple of different areas. One is in updating the design in the two areas that Hans already mentioned, which is some very localized upgrades of the TPS and those attach points. And I know in the press conference following this, Steve Stitch, even though I hate the fact that he gets to do this, I'm sure he'll talk about it a whole bunch. So, but, obviously we had to update that certification. We did a demo flight to learn. And so we found out that in those particular locations, we'd like to have an updated design. And so the new work is focused in that area. And then we did make a design change to changed a screen design, and then also changed, like Hans said, how we were measuring the barometric pressure to determine what's the right altitude to be able to deploy the drogue chutes. And so really the big chunk of the certification is in those upgrades, and then any deltas. Demo 2 provided a capability to be able to dock on the forward element, on the forward docking area, and Crew-1, because it's a full increment crew, is giving us a new capability to also be able to dock on the zenith port. And so those were capabilities that were needed for our increment missions, but weren't needed to safely fly Crew for our Demo 2 mission. So the team's kind of doing their Delta certification efforts. The big chunk of the work had been done prior to Demo 2.
Thank you for that answer. We'll now pass it over to Salen Babauer from Gannett Industries.
Thank you. My question is for NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine. Sir, how historic is this first operational mission of Crew-1 in the history of human spaceflight? Thank you.
Oh, you bet. Well, look, here's the thing. In November, we're celebrating 20 years of having people living and working on the International Space Station. And it just so happens that when we launch on October 31st, early in the morning on Halloween, it will be 20 years since the launch of Expeditionary Mission 1, EM1. So this is a very exciting time for the agency in general, but it just demonstrates the value of the International Space Station. Without this tool that we have, not just a tool of diplomacy, but also science and technology development, we've been able to go from flying space shuttles and now flying commercial vehicles, demonstrating that we can drive down costs and increase access. So I think probably from a historical perspective, the most important thing is we have fundamentally changed the business model for how NASA does business. We want to be a customer, especially when it comes to low Earth orbit. We want to be one customer of many, and we want to have numerous providers that are competing on cost and innovation. We have proven that out with commercial Crew, and now we're getting into these regularly scheduled missions for Dragon. And of course, Starliner is coming up soon. In fact, the Crew that's about to launch on October 31st, they're going to be there when the very first Starliner attaches to the International Space Station. So we're going to have two independent companies that are, have very unique solution sets to achieve spaceflight and docking at the International Space Station. And I think that's really there's a lot of historic firsts that are about to take place, especially with this Crew. So it's an exciting time.
Next, we have Lauren Grush from The Verge.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. I recall with DM2 there are constraints on the Crew Dragon's lifetime in orbit because of its solar panels. I'm wondering if those similar constraints are on this mission or if the Crew Dragon's lifetime in orbit has been extended. Thank you.
So the solar panels are different for a longer duration. I'll leave it to Kathy.
Oh, sorry about that. Stepping on you there. It's a fully certified vehicle, so 210 days. So as Jim said, there's an upgraded solar panel design, and so every aspect of the vehicle is 210 days.
Thank you. Friendly reminder for our callers to please state to whom you'd like to direct your question. Next, we have Michael Sheets from CNBC.
Hi, all. I just wanted to ask a quick question that could be answered by either Kathy or Hans. I know that Crew Dragon is designed to hold up to 7 passengers. I'm wondering at this point when you might expect to see that full capability utilized. I know this is a big step from 2 to 4, but I'm wondering whether or not you have any missions planned in the near future that would expand that all the way up to the full 7 passengers. Thanks.
So from a NASA perspective, I'll answer first and then let Hans talk about the capacity for 7. Our capability is for 4, but we also have this unique, we have unique requirements for us to also fly powered cargo payloads that take up extra room and then additional cargo, right? Where other missions in low Earth orbit may or may not have those types of requirements also. So the NASA capability is for the full complement of 4 crew members, like Jim talked about, but that's what trades off our crew and cargo requirements for these missions.
Yeah, we always have the option, but as for NASA missions, we use the space right now for cargo and an extra capability, and we will continue to fly 4 astronauts to the International Space Station. And also on the first mission, we will learn on how well the EGLIS, the life support system, continues to work with 4 people. And then going forward, we will look at other options.
Next, we have Andrea Leinfelder from the Houston Chronicle.
Hi, thanks for taking my call this morning. So I recall of Demo 2, this question's for Kathy. I recall of Demo 2 that we launched in the afternoon, partly because of the astronaut sleep schedule. We need everyone to be able to get a good night's rest and to sleep at the right time. So I was curious as to why we decided to launch this one at 2:40 in the morning. Thank you.
Well, I wish for my boss's sake I could launch this mission in the afternoon, I think, because really what drives when we launch is the phasing. So when the rocket and the International Space Station kind of line up together in the best way for us to get there. So really physics kind of drives the time frame for when we launch during on particular days. So it worked out really nicely for us on our launch in May that we were able to provide a nice launch window in the afternoon. I was hoping I'd be able to do the same thing for this mission, but we're going to have a great launch, early in the morning instead. So night launches are very beautiful.
Next, we have Paul Brinkman from UPI.
Hello, thanks for doing this. I guess my question is for Hans, or actually about the four-person capacity. I'm just wondering if you could kind of go through how egress of the capsule will work. And I'm also wondering if anybody there knows whether this is the first time in history that a capsule will carry 4 people.
Yeah, I'm thinking really fast here, trying to remember if there's any other capsule with 4 people. I mean, going into the capsule and getting out of doesn't change with 4 people. It just takes probably twice as long as with 2, one after the other. And we have a crew that supports the astronauts on how they settle in their seats and make sure they're all buckled up and comfortable. And so I don't see any changes here. And also, if you keep in mind, Dragon is relatively roomy for a space capsule for 2 people and also for 4 people. You can still walk around there a little bit. So I don't anticipate any. I
wonder if you might explain what that means. Thanks.
Certainly. So first of all, this was a small area in the heat shield, and in particular the area around what we call the tension ties, which hold the trunk and the Dragon spacecraft together. In this particular area, we saw some flow phenomenon that I guess we didn't really expect, and we saw erosion to be deeper than we anticipated. However, I mean, this heat shield is massive, and over the entire acreage there was very little erosion. In this particular area, it was a little bit deeper, but nothing to be concerned. At all times, the astronauts were safe, and the vehicle was working perfectly. So this is something that we just in the inspection found, and looked at it and then decided, oh, okay, we should probably, and reinforce the heat shield in this particular area. And it's actually 4 areas just around detention ties, a very small area compared to the overall acreage of the heat shield. And then I think Kathy's comment regarding screen refers to a sort of a filter that filters the air going into the barometric pressure sensor. That particular filter has been opened up a little bit so that it's less constrained, and that has the effect that we measure the barometric pressure more accurately when we come down and deploy the parachute right on time. That is something that was also not a particular problem the last time, but going forward it is a safety improvement, and we'll make sure that we will launch astronauts and land them, of course, safely in the upcoming years.
We'll now take a few questions from social media using the hashtag AskNASA. This first one comes from Israel on Twitter, who directed his question to Kathy. What value can the taxpayer expect out of NASA's partnership with SpaceX?
Well, I think, like Jim said, our goal is to one day be able to buy services in low Earth orbit, right? So this is one step on our process for us to get there. We're taking this in careful steps, but for us to be able to continue to do what we feel is our charter, which is to go and do deep space exploration, us moving towards a commercial platform in low Earth orbit and being able to use commercial services is a goal of ours. And so us taking this first step with a commercial service for our crew and cargo capabilities now is an important step in that process.
This next Ask NASA question comes from Jim on Twitter. This one's for the administrator. With Crew-1 and a Russian launch to the International Space Station, the station will have a larger population than it has in quite a while. Any impacts from that are anticipated?
Yeah, some significant impacts. Once we have a bigger complement of astronauts on the International Space Station, we can do a lot more science, and that's gonna give us a return even faster. Make no mistake, we've had huge returns from the International Space Station already, but now we can get even more, even faster. The previous question was about what are the returns we're going to see for the American taxpayer from the commercial crew program or the SpaceX Crew Dragon. Bottom line is, we are making every effort to industrialize space as fast as possible. So we look at advanced materials and we look at industrialized biomedicine, the compounding of pharmaceuticals or the creating of immunizations. The value here is microgravity. We can't create microgravity here on Earth. You can do drop towers. You can send airplanes on parabolic trajectories in order to get microgravity. But ultimately, it's a very short duration. When we get to orbit, we can have microgravity for months, even up to a year. Well, we can have it for 20 years, as is evidenced with the International Space Station, but any individual astronaut up to a year. And so what this means is we get to maximize the utility of microgravity for research. And ultimately, we're focusing our research for a day when that research becomes applied. So when we think about the ability to create human tissue for people that maybe need new tissue, whether it's skin or something else, using your own adult stem cells, we can create your own tissue in the microgravity of space. When you do it in the gravity well of Earth, it just goes flat. So there's a lot of benefits. I like to talk about advanced materials, creating an artificial retina for the human eyeball so people who have macular degeneration don't have to lose their eyesight. And there's so many more things that we get from these kind of activities. And of course, when we think about Kibo and our partners on the International Space Station from Japan and some of the capabilities that they've put that give us the ability to put instruments on the outside of the space station, both for astrophysics and the study of the Earth, to increase crop yields while reducing water usage, to transform how we do agriculture. There are so many benefits to commercialization. The International Space Station is really the place to prove all of these things out. And then it's up to the private sector to make determinations that it's worth capitalizing and then using these commercial capabilities that we've built. But make no mistake, NASA has a long history of commercial capabilities. We think about people watching this right now on the internet, for example, internet broadband from space, Dish Network, DirecTV. How do we navigate? How do we produce food and energy and do disaster relief, predict weather, understand climate? The returns here are really astonishing. The International Space Station is an amazing capability for the country, and of course, having more crew on the International Space Station makes all of these advancements happen faster. And that gets us to a day of commercialization faster than we could have done otherwise. So this is really, it's a great time to be at NASA, and it's a great time to see all of the amazing developments happen.
We'll now return to our phone bridge over to Jeff Faust from Space News.
Yeah, good morning. I wanted to return to the issue of certification and when, this is for Kathy, when you expect to have everything wrapped up and have that certification review, and how soon can that certification review take place before the launch? Thanks.
We've actually had our program level certification review already, and we had our status at the agency level. So right now we're just in the process of finalizing the last few pieces of documentation that we need to close out our human rating certification plan, which I view that will be done probably in the next week to 10 days. And then our final cert we will be doing at our as part of our flight readiness review for Crew-1. So we're kind of doing it in two phases, finishing up our human rating plan, which I think should be in the next week to 10 days, and then finalizing, kind of dotting the I's, crossing the T's at our flight readiness review. That will be coming up about a week before we go into Crew-1.
Next, we have Eric Berger from Ars Technica.
Yeah, hi. Thanks very much for doing this. My question is about commercial space. I think all of you are true believers. Hans and Kathy, obviously you guys have been doing this for a long time. Jim, I think everyone on the phone could chant along with NASA wants to be one of many, many customers. But I'd like to know whether, Jim, 4 months since Demo 2, you've seen a shift from the non-believers in commercial space, so the skeptics who maybe thought commercial space wasn't up to the task. Have you seen any signs that sort of, maybe more people are realizing the potential here?
Absolutely. I can tell you that the enthusiasm for what happened on Demo 2 was extremely robust among people within the U.S. government, of course, among members of Congress that fund NASA's budgets, but that enthusiasm was not just in the government, it was also nationwide. I mean, the entire world and was in awe of the accomplishment. So I do believe that there is a very robust, there's a lot of support for these capabilities. And so, yeah, I think it's as strong now as it's ever been. I think some of the doubters have maybe been made to not doubt so much because it has now happened. But I also think, look, commercial crew was really the second part. We were resupplying the International Space Station commercially with Northrop Grumman and SpaceX ahead of that. So the next big thing, Eric, and I know you know this, the next big thing is commercial habitation apart from the International Space Station, which is something that we need members of Congress to be willing to fund. We've put it in the budget request. every year, and it never gets funded at the level that is necessary to achieve the end states. Here's what we know, Eric. There's going to come a day in the future when the International Space Station is going to have to end. We don't like to think about it because we really, really love the International Space Station. But we also do have to think about the fact that 20 years is a long time, and it can't last forever. We have to be making the investments right now today so that we don't have a gap in low Earth orbit. That's what's been lacking. We haven't had the investment necessary to guarantee that we don't have a gap in low Earth orbit. And it's critically important that we make those investments. And I think right now more than ever, we do have those believers that you're talking about. They are willing to step up to the plate and fund the budget request at the level necessary to eventually, get commercial habitation so that there will be no gap. And that's one of the things that we're working on every day to make sure that there is no gap.
Next is Marcia Dunn from the Associated Press.
Yes, hi. This question, I think when people hear certified and operational for this upcoming flight, many, at least in the public, are going to think that all of a sudden Dragon flight for humans is routine, if you will, and that kind of phrasing got NASA in trouble in the shuttle program. How do you look at this as routine now that you've got, and also do you feel a lot of the pressure is off now that you had a successful test flight on this?
Well, that's a great question, actually, and honestly, I don't feel that this is over at all. I feel like we need to actually step it up. The transition from a test vehicle to an operational vehicle to a production vehicle is very difficult. Getting this, in an operational phase that is safe and has all the scrutiny and the rigor of human spaceflight is a lot of work and very, very difficult in itself. So I feel like we actually, and we responded that way within SpaceX. We stepped it up. We do more reviews than ever. We pay incredibly scrutiny to the flight data of Demo 2, and there's a huge effort going on to make sure that both Falcon and Tile. And like I said earlier, this was always a safe situation. It never got to structure. The overall heat shield was working great. So it's something that is relatively easy to fix by putting a more resistant or erosion-resistant material in that particular place, because you want to be careful. You don't want to make too many changes at this point in time. And then basically test it. We did that last week, and it came out great. And so I'm confident that we fixed this particular problem very well.
Next, we'll go over to Irene Klotz from Aviation Week.
Hi. Actually had a similar question from Doug, so I think I'll just continue his for a minute, is for Hans. What estimate percent did the TPS ablate relative to your predictions, and why didn't this show up on Demo 1? And then also for Kathy, are you expecting to process any waivers for the Dragon Crew-1 flight?
Yeah, so I'm not sure I can say it's an estimate because it's really just locally, and it's a good reminder regarding Demo 1. We didn't see this on Demo 1, at least not to this extent that we noticed something. It's a good question. Demo 1 was slightly lighter, had a slightly different trajectory. Maybe that caused this. At the end of the day, it's great that we found it on this flight, and can basically take corrective action going forward. And also, like I said, this was not an unsafe situation at all. This is just something that we observed and then basically changed to make sure that nothing bad will ever happen. So that's like I said, on Demo 1, if you look at it with hindsight, you might see some erosion, but honestly, it's not very visible there.
And Irene, I do not know the final count for the waivers, so I would maybe hold that question and ask that question of Steve Stitch.
Next, we have Rachel Joy from Florida Today.
Hey there, this question is for Bridenstine. Back during Demo 2, due to COVID-19, you asked that launch spectators and visitors not visit the Space Coast to watch the launch. Here we are 5 months later. What is NASA's approach or messaging for launch spectators for this historic launch? Thank you.
Yeah, so we have to remember that even though we suggested for Demo 2 people not come to the launch, it certainly didn't prevent them from coming. And there were massive crowds, outside of the Kennedy Space Center. So what we're asking people to do is follow CDC guidelines, to follow the guidelines from the state of Florida, and do what is necessary to keep safe. And that's ultimately what our objective is. I will tell you that we are limiting the amount of visitors that can come onto the Kennedy Space Center. We have a lot of, as you're aware, we have a lot of very important missions coming up. My number one objective is to make sure that we don't have an outbreak at the Kennedy Space Center. We've been very successful keeping our people safe so far. We want to make sure that we keep them safe so that ultimately we can continue to do the mission of NASA and the United States of America.
We'll now go over to Megan Bartles from Space.com.
Hi, thanks so much for taking my question. This is Megan Bartels with Space.com with a question for, I think, Hans. You mentioned recently that the new heat shield design was tested last week. Could you talk a little bit more about what that process was and how closely it mimics what the capsule will undergo when the Crew-1 astronauts re-enter? Thanks.
Yes, of course. So the test we do is is called an ArcJet test, and it is in a NASA facility in Moffett. I don't remember the center right now. It's up here in California. I'm really embarrassed by not knowing the name right now. But I actually wasn't there. I did look at the wind tunnel, that ArcJet tunnel, a while back, and it's pretty impressive because it can very well recreate the situation. But then the size of the area you can test is obviously not very large. It's a relatively small area. So I think we, in terms of as realistic testing as you can, we did what we could, and then we also do a lot of analysis and make sure that we got any flow phenomenon worked out from the analysis side based on the flight data we saw with Demo 2 and then, last but not least, I also mentioned that CRS-21, the new cargo Dragon, will go up a month after Crew-1, and this particular Dragon will come back earlier, so that gives us another chance to validate the design and to make sure that everything is safe and good going forward.
And it's Ames. It was done at the Ames Research Center, and obviously NASA and SpaceX folks have been looking at it. We have a lot of thermal protection system experts too, and everybody understands kind of how to correlate the data from those samples and be able to understand it, and I think we're very satisfied with the design.
We have time for one or two more questions. We'll next go to Morgan McFall-Johnson from Business Insider.
Hi, thanks so much for taking my question. This one is for Kathy or Jim, maybe. You've got a whole bunch of data back from Demo 2 now. I'm just wondering if you found any pleasant surprise.
To answer this.
Okay. So the lock requirements that we had were design requirements, and so those are closed out. They'll be closed out during our certification phase. It's a design requirement over kind of the life of the program, and so all of SpaceX met. I think the final number was 1 in 276, and so met the NASA requirements for it. Demo 2 went so well for us. We're spending a lot of time talking about those two pieces, but honestly, the spacecraft launch went beautifully, rendezvous, docking went beautifully. Like I talked about, we were able to do the 4 crew tests, the habitability test while the vehicle was on orbit. The return, went beautifully first time coming back. And Bob and Doug were able to give us great insight on how the vehicle operated through all the phases of flight. So I don't think it will be a great mission if Crew-1 goes exactly the same way. So I'm counting on it, Hans. I'm counting on a beautiful mission the exact same way. So we're looking forward to this. This is going to be a great day.
Thanks to all who submitted questions today, and thanks to today's briefers for taking the time to discuss this historic event. This is the first in our series of briefings today. Next up is a briefing to discuss the Crew-1 mission overview. That's at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, and we'll host the astronauts of Crew-1 for a news conference at 2 p.m. For details on these briefings and for the latest on this mission, please visit nasa.gov/commercial crew. Thanks again for joining us. That will wrap up today's briefing.